happening now a lot is drug driving. And that's where people have had something, we'll say, on a Saturday night, and they're stopped at one of these mandatory checkpoints 3 days later, even a week later. They have to give a sample of the saliva. The saliva is then put into a machine which tests for up to 8 or 9 different drugs, cannabis, benzodiazepines, amphetamines, methamphetamines, ketamine, all that sort of stuff, and cocaine. And if that sample of saliva shows up the presence of any one of those things, you're going to be arrested right there and then. Then you're brought to the station and a sample of blood is taken from you. And if it subsequently shows up in the analysis from the Medical Bureau of Road Safety, you could be facing a year off the road. One of the major ways now that people are being stopped for drink or drug driving is what's known as a mandatory intoxilizer checkpoint. And these things are set up at specific places, at specific times, on specific dates. The guards are given permission in writing from an inspector, and the inspector will say that on this date, in this place, between the hours of 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. or whatever it is, I want a checkpoint set up. And so once they have that authorization from an inspector to set up a checkpoint, they're authorized to stop and get anybody to give a sample of their saliva, whether or not they think that person is intoxicated or otherwise. You could be perfectly fine, but they can ask you to provide a specimen of your saliva using a device that they give you, and you must provide it. People don't realize that cannabis will stay in your system for a long time. So you could be potentially prosecuted and convicted for something today that you did 2 weeks earlier. And it's not acting on your system in any bad way. You're not obviously intoxicated. You were at the time, but not 2 weeks later. But you could be put off the road for that thing.
So you could smoke a joint on a Saturday night and the following Thursday?
Yes. Yeah, the following Thursday, there's no way that the cannabis joint is still acting on your central nervous system and making you intoxicated in any way. You're fine at some point the next day or the day after that. You're perfectly, you have all the outward appearances of being sober. But if you're stopped at a checkpoint and they do a saliva test and it shows up, you will be prosecuted, and you could end up being put off the road for a year for that. So things that happened 2 weeks ago could come back to haunt you. If they suspect you're under the influence of drugs, they'll take a blood sample. And what they'll do then with the blood sample is that that'll be taken, that'll be packed into a little box, and it'll be sent by registered post, or sometimes in Dublin, they'll deliver that day, the guard will deliver the sample to the Medical Bureau of Road Safety, and they're operating out of the Health Sciences building in UCD. But oftentimes for drug driving, the analysis for alcohol in the blood comes back 0. Like there's no alcohol in your blood. And in that situation then, what the Medical Bureau do is that they take that sample of blood and then they add a preservative to it and they stick it into a refrigerator. And in that situation where it's in a refrigerator, it's stable for months because the testing for drugs takes much longer.